friends after.
And there we go. Should make an announcement.
All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Ce-2 here in October. I'm Hope McCutcheon, and I am on the board of CBIC, the Charlottesville Business Innovation Council. And this is an incredible event, in my humble opinion, that is put on by a number of pretty great organizations here in Charlottesville. This is put on by CBIC, as well as the Community Investment Collaborative, CIC, and the SBDC, the Small Business Development Center here in Central Virginia, and is also sponsored by the Batten Institute, so for entrepreneurship. And so all those organizations come together and help make this a successful event. We have been going on since 2015. So a long time. We've been on 7 years, and it started at the iLab. So that's where we historically met up until COVID. And so we were able to quickly pivot online. And so we've been doing this virtually. And I just thank all of you guys for continuing to attend. There's a lot of familiar faces on here, which is great. I think maybe Gabriel, I don't know, Gabriel, is this your first time calling you out? Might be the only name I don't recognize. So glad to have every single one of you on here. And we are ready to go back in person. I will say that we had really great attendance and continue to, but I think that people are just ready for that change. And so we're looking at maybe doing something hybrid. And I have kind of suggested that we might be doing it October, September, I keep pushing it out. So we're looking at January. So November, do plan on being here virtually again. And then in January is when we'll reevaluate to be in person. And let's see, how this day is structured is we have an early stage speaker. So every month we feature someone with a newer business that will share about their company, and then they'll have an ask for the audience. And then I'm going to, and then we have a more seasoned entrepreneur that shares their crash and learn stories, those stories that you don't always get to hear, and lessons that they learned. And we've just found it to be very enlightening, no matter what your background and what your industry. And then we close with announcements, which is where you have the opportunity to share about any upcoming events, as well as if your company's hiring. So those are 2 types of announcements. And then finally, we do breakout rooms, and that's where you have the opportunity to talk to the speakers, and they'll each be in their own breakout room, and then we keep the main room open. And what that allows for, it kind of simulates an in-person environment where you can go up and chat with the speaker after. So you can continue there. So we can go ahead and jump in. I wanted to start with introducing Ross Ruffing, and I'll probably spotlight the video, by the way, but you can always put it back to gallery view if you prefer. But Ross has to look at himself when he's talking, I guess. But Ross and I actually met, I think we were connected because of this event, which is pretty cool. Ross grew up in Pittsburgh, so in Pennsylvania, and went to the University of Pittsburgh, was a English literature and poli-sci major. He's actually had a passion for entrepreneurship for a long time. He's been an early employee for startups across the country, from Pittsburgh to Denver, a couple here in both Stanton and Charlottesville, so Central Virginia as well. He actually once moved out to Denver, wanted to be back on the East Coast to be closer to family. Sounds to me like closed his eyes, picked a city and moved there, but just picked a cool place on the East Coast. And of course he picked Charlottesville. So that's how we got him here. Actually, I think that the early stage company that he was a part of here in Charlottesville was Moonlighting. And Jeff Tinnery was one of our former Crash and Learn speakers. So that's pretty cool. He became passionate about inspiring others to take innovative action and started his own company called LucraShare, where he helps customers, his clients rather, leverage customer insights to build better business models faster with consumer engagement, all very important. He is married and is a girl dad. He's got 3 girls, which is pretty awesome. They live in Nelson County, and loves the mountains and traveling, and I asked him for a fun fact, and he said he loves, are you ready for this? Since it's a breakfast meeting, jelly toast with a fried egg on it. And he added, don't knock it till you try it. I actually put jelly on my eggs sometimes, so I'm with you. I'm sure that's really good. But I'm going to go ahead and give the floor to Ross.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for that wonderful introduction, Hope. Make sure you put salt on that fried egg. It's pretty critical, to have the little salt and sweetness. So as Hope mentioned, I started my own company about 6 months ago. And I've been, let me just change over to gallery view here so I can look at more of you than just myself. Yeah, like I said, I started this company probably about 6-8 months ago. I, got the LLC and everything while still at my old job over in Stanton. And at that job, I spent a lot of time doing research on dual use technologies. So we were getting a lot of research and development funding from the government. And oftentimes whenever you get R&D money from the government, they want you to also look into other applications for the technology. So you can make sure that you're pursuing some commercial projects as well as the federal project. And in that process, I really started to do a lot of customer discovery. Some of you might be familiar with this process. If you're not, it's basically a very simple way to do market research about an idea or business that you might have, so that you can just start talking to people, start learning a few things, start gathering some information, find some patterns, and really validate your business model or find a new market to pursue. And in that process, first of all, I really loved that process. So it was something that I was passionate about and really enjoyed finding those sub-markets that you may not know of otherwise, especially for some really complicated and interesting technologies out there. But through that process, I really realized that, hey, this is a full-on sales effort, to go out, engage with people, map out an ecosystem of businesses, come up with the right people to talk to, follow up, multiple times to get them on the phone. And then at the end of that process, the only thing that you gain is information. Now, of course, that's valuable, not trying to undersell how valuable the information is. But oftentimes it's hard when you do that whole process and you don't have any revenue attached at the end. I'm sure the bosses out there can attest. If you're watching your people kind of just do a lot of research without any, tangible results, sometimes that's a struggle. And for early stage companies, of course, you want to get through that process as quick as possible so that you can start building your thing. Because the whole point of this customer discovery process is really to identify the right problems, understand that problem more, and then develop a solution for it. So in doing that process, I discovered that, what a challenge this is. And I really learned that it's super important to have those conversations, be that person, if you're the founder or if you're the engineer that's working on the problem, it's really critical for you to have those conversations. But it's the part of it that isn't really required for that person to do is all the reach outs and follow-ups, mapping ecosystem of businesses and industries, doing the reach outs, scheduling phone calls. So what I've done in my business is strip down that part of the process by mapping multiple ecosystems, using some publicly available information, and then pulling those resources, reaching out to people individually right now. But of course, as I scale up, I have plans to make that more automated and just gather big groups of people so that people can schedule phone calls with those folks as quickly as possible. And the way I'm trying to solve this problem is to make that other side benefit from it monetarily. So as we all, if you've ever done any market research, one of the things you don't want to do is go in and just start telling about your idea, because that breaks down, it gives the person an understanding of what you're trying to do. And then you're not going to get as much valuable insight into the problem or the potential solutions. But if we can take this model and create an understanding on both sides where you're able to create a monetary a way for people to earn money by having conversations on their cell phones, and then on the flip side for the business owners to be able to validate a business model more quickly. So that's the basic rundown of it. I'll give you a couple quick details, and then I'll jump into a little bit of where my challenges are and what I need help with. So on the monetization side, as I mentioned, the goal would be for the entrepreneur to compensate their the interviewee for their time. And that through that exchange, the platform would make a small commission, small referral fee. One of the really big valuable things I see in this, obviously you have a way for people to make money from anywhere remotely on their own time. And on the other side, you have this way for entrepreneurs to validate their business model a little bit faster and very inexpensively. But on the third side of it, for anybody that's an investor out there, this is a great way to de-risk a startup. So if you're trying to understand if somebody really has something here, tell them to go out and talk to 10 or 15 of their customers and gather that information and then come back to you. And the faster you can do that, the more valuable it can be. So that's kind of a little bit on that. And then my macro thought here is really to try to get down to the problem that we're facing with data privacy rights. Obviously, every single organization that scrapes your data off the internet is now trying to adapt to new laws that are being created to protect your data more. So on a macro level and just kind of thinking down the road for myself, I want to be part of that, trying to help individuals monetize their own data, or at least protect their own data and use their own data for their own benefit without it just being given away for free as it has been for some years. So that's the basic rundown. As far as where my challenges are, one of the big things that I'm running into is a lot of this happens in the government contracting ecosystem, which moves a little bit slower than we all would like sometimes. But beyond that, one of the big things in all these classes that they tell you is don't pay for this process. And while my business is trying to create a little bit of a buffer between who's paying and who's receiving the payment so that there's no bias, that is a hurdle that I'm struggling with a little bit, just because the community that uses this process the most believes you shouldn't pay for the process. And now, of course, I'm not trying to have them pay for the actual information, but actually pay for the effort it takes to get the person on the phone, and then the person on the phone gets compensated for their time. So that's a little bit nuanced. In terms of what I'd really love to hear from all of you, I'd love to know what tools that you guys have used for finding customers, validating customers, and getting feedback from those customers. Because one of the things I want to create here for companies is a way to validate their business model, get constant feedback, and then create repeatable ways to create that loop that you can get that feedback, integrate it right back into the business, and keep going. So I'm just curious how people validate their business models and what tools they use for customer feedback. Hope, I think you're muted if you're chiming in.
Oh, thank you. So I removed the spotlight now too, Ross, so people can hit gallery view and see it. But thank you so much for sharing. So this is where Ross just presented an ask, and we'll open up the floor for you guys to help him with that. So who has some insights for him, for his company, on how you collect customer insights and engagement?
Or if you don't, that's fine too. I'd love to hear about why.
Don?
Yeah, Ross, I don't have the insight for you. You come across very articulate, but I'm going to say I'm still struggling to understand the product.
Okay.
So pretend I'm a client. Help me understand what you're doing for me and
Sure.
the value for me.
Sure, absolutely. I appreciate the question, Don. What I'm trying to create for you, if you're an early stage entrepreneur or researcher, I'd like to create a way to deliver your potential customers to you as quickly as possible so that you can gather information about the problems that they're having. So as I mentioned, in the federal ecosystem, you get this set of requirements from the government, and then you take those requirements and you build a product with it. However, the government may not necessarily always be the best customer for you. So the government would like you to go out into the commercial market and identify other areas that this product might be useful. And one of the best ways that they've found to do that, and that a lot of startup entrepreneurs have as well, is through this process of customer discovery. just getting out of the building, talking to your potential customers and learning from them. So what I'm trying to do is make that process happen a lot faster. So if you're an early stage entrepreneur or researcher, you can come to our company and say, hey, I'd like to do a market research effort using this customer discovery process. And I'd like to talk to 10 people in the next 5 days. Versus if you were doing it on your own, it may take you 6 to 8 weeks to cultivate enough people and follow up enough people to get those people on the phone and gather that information.
So not my existing customers. It's I've got something I'm trying to go out into the marketplace and I kind of don't know where to go. And you're going to give me some focus.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
Help you focus in, start getting on the phone with people, start talking to people, because as we all know, it's like a crash and burn kind of thing. It's, you either learn something about where you want to go or you learn something where you don't want to go. So every conversation can be a guiding light in both directions. And of course, this is something that we all do in our everyday life as well. But this helps you hone in on that right person to potentially talk to, get that happening as fast as possible so you can validate business models and move on. If that's the wrong thing, then you move on from it.
So tell me about this free alternative that's out there that people say, don't pay for you, go use something free. Because my guess is it's just an internet data dump that really doesn't hone you in.
Yeah, I mean, basically, it's as you can imagine. When I've done this process in the past, I've used LinkedIn. So I just go to LinkedIn, start researching people, start figuring out who the right person to talk to, start reaching out to them. And I'm pretty good at that, having a background in sales and being willing to put that time in. The problem is a lot of engineers and researchers who are working on these R&D efforts, that's not really their skill set, and they don't want to do that. But they do really value the time they spend on the phone with people. So I'm just trying to eliminate that front end of the process for people, shorten it up so that they can get right on the phone, start gathering that information, start learning, and start iterating for their company.
Got it.
So,
Thank you.
Ross, how do you source the people? How do you bring the people that somebody, for example, if I want to talk to marketers in companies, how do you bring them to me?
So the first thing that I've worked through is there's this huge database of government researchers. So I've just went individual by individual, reached out to them, told them what I'm doing, and asked them if they want to be part of the kind of the beta of what I'm doing. And what I've learned is just gathering that ecosystem of entrepreneurs, they oftentimes want to help one another. So they'll take a phone call with someone else, and then that oftentimes leads to bringing more people into the platform, as well as into the fold of who can talk to whom. Because, most of us here are entrepreneurs, or we're entrepreneurial thinking people, but we also know marketers, we know nurses, we know doctors, we know people that buy stuff on Amazon. There's a really, hopefully a really good ecosystem building part of that kind of ingrained in. But right now, in the early stages in the beta, how we'll find people is me going to find people for you and connecting those people manually.
And how does it work? Do I pay per person? Do I pay per session?
Yeah, $30 for 30 minutes. That's kind of the easy way I put it. So if you're an entrepreneur, you're willing to pay $30 to get on the phone for 30 minutes with somebody. And on the other side, if you're just an everyday individual, I think $30 for 30 minutes is compelling for most people.
That's what you're paying people to participate.
Right. And that's
what are you charging the client? So I want to talk to 10 marketers.
Yeah. So we would try to line you up with 10 30-minute conversations at $30 a pop, $300.
Oh, I would pay 30. Oh, I'm paying $30 for the thing.
Yeah. The entrepreneur pays. And this is the part where I'm
That's a good deal.
I'm still kind of struggling a little bit because I want to make sure that I'm providing enough value for people in that, while also attracting that other side, that more or less I'm trying to create a sharing economy for conversations. Mm-hmm. That's like what I really want to do is help people, everyday people, be able to grab their cell phone, line up a couple phone calls and make, a couple $100. And this goes for entrepreneurs as well. I mean, I'm an entrepreneur. I don't have a paycheck coming in every month, every week. So I would love to find a way that I can be in my office, connecting with people, networking with people, and also making a little bit of money and hopefully helping that other side as well. And so I have a lot of different ways to think through how that might look in the future, because there is oftentimes value created on both sides of the conversation. every time I've been a part of one of these conversations, whether I'm the interviewer or interviewee, I've gained a lot of insight that I wouldn't have otherwise. And, we can do all the Google research that we want, but talking to real people, as we mentioned in the beginning, and just going back to these in-person events, we're all so excited for that.
Mhm.
Talking to an actual individual on the other side of the coin is the best way to learn from your customers, in my opinion.
And to not have to chase them. There's probably something behind, it being a priority to that,
Yeah.
the person you're interviewing, that they keep the appointment and they're having that conversation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And to Dawn's point, while the initial part of this idea was definitely to help early stage companies, I've learned that a lot of companies are still trying to figure out how to get feedback from their customers 10, 15, 20 years down the road. And sometimes surveys are great. Sometimes gathering their data is great, but sometimes just a conversation with them can yield a different insight.
Mhm. And what was your ask? Did we get your
Yeah, I
ask?
was gonna say to restate that.
Sure, no problem. And I appreciate the questions, and I appreciate you guys being interested enough to have me clarify, because I know it is a little bit of an abstract concept, and it's a little bit niche for what the kind of people that use it. But I think you guys are a great market for it, so I appreciate that. First of all, my ask was, what tools and what things do you do to do market research for a company that you want to start, or a business that you're trying to, or an idea that you're trying to pursue? I'm curious what tools and avenues people use to do their own market research and validate their businesses.
Ross, I started a recruiting company and I just did old school traditional, like take people out to coffee and pick their brain, and to make sure that there was enough of an interest, and that I would have, in the process, I got support. So some of my first clients were the ones that I picked their brain first and kind of gathered their cheerleading support before I started. So that's what I did.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's what I did too. And that's where I was like, hey, this is such an awesome process.
Uh-oh.
Especially trying to say, hey, I want to talk to 15, 20, 50 people potentially. That can take a significant amount of your time. And that's where I'm trying to really shorten that up, so that, like you said, you found a lot of value in those conversations. Let's make those happen faster and more often.
Ross, I'm going to be a little old school here. I think there's a bit of me that wonders if you're looking for technology for something that actually, to do it well, is a P2P kind of thing. It's person to person. And my worry is it will devalue itself if it goes into something more mechanistic. Now, the problem is your margins aren't big enough for that time. The one thing I would also think about is, can you expand this a bit? Because I can think of a few people I'm talking to right now that they actually need analysis of their existing customer base and help to decide which ones are the gold customers and the bronze and the silver ones, which ones want more business, and why did things not work? Why did they work? And so it's not just searching for new customers, but there's also something about helping people assess how they're doing with their existing customers. But once again, I get so much more out of talking to people than something mechanistic that would give me something.
Yeah,
Ross, it sounds,
definitely.
Don, it sounds like he's streamlining that whole process. Like, you're still having conversations with real people. It's just he's helping put those people in front of you and streamlining it to save you time and make sure you get the answers you want, right, Ross?
Yeah, that said, I think Don brings up a really good point, and it's one of the challenges that I mentioned. I'm not sure I verbalized it well before, but basically a lot of people in this ecosystem say, like, hey, you shouldn't pay for a customer discovery effort because it kind of creates a bias in the process right from the get-go. And to your point as well, Don, I think there's a ton of value in the LinkedIn research that I've done. If people are just lining me up with phone calls, I'm losing out on a little bit of that network building, a little bit of that insight that I'm gaining through that online research. And I personally believe that, this doesn't necessarily replace all that. I think you still need to be doing that. But for somebody who is an idea person like myself, and, sometimes I come up with an idea and I'm like, hey, I don't know if this will fly or not, but I'd love to talk to 2 or 3 people, just hash it out a little bit and see. And then if it's not the right idea, then great, I'll move on faster. So I think that, there's a little bit of a spectrum on that, where I think I agree with you. I think there's a lot of value in doing that gritty work. And at the same time, I think there's customers out there that, would love to shrink that grit time a little bit in some scenarios, to get to a development effort faster, or to see where they need to go next.
Okay, good.
Anyone
Yeah,
else have?
I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead, sorry.
I was
No,
going to say,
you-
Ross, I think you have a niche. I know this market well, and there are tools out there right now that that marketers use where they can put an idea out there. It's almost like an instant survey kind of thing. You put an idea out there and you want 100 people, 300 people, 1,000 people give you feedback. You can get it within hours, right? But this is different. And I think the emphasis on what you're talking about is discovery, because true discovery comes when you are not really sure what it is you're looking for. And I know that doesn't sound like reassuring, but when you start conversations, you actually do discover things if you're listening for it and just open to it. So it's a little bit of a different niche. And if you position yourself, I mean, any company in the world can use this because they're constantly trying to understand what the voice of the customer is, so to speak. And just, is there something they're not thinking about? And if you keep it fairly low cost and quick, it actually has a positioning, because if you go out and try to get respondents for something and you specify the respondent, it's going to cost you at least $200, $250 to get that interview or that response. So if you price it right and it's quick and simple and easy, I think you have definitely a niche there.
Great. Thank you for that feedback.
Does anyone else have any insights or thoughts for Ross on his model?
Ross, I have a question. I'm afraid I missed the beginning. When you were recruiting your interviewees, do you present them with offers that they can accept or decline?
That's kind of to be determined at the moment. I'm doing most of this manually. So I've pulled together some tools for my beta just to, pull it all together and make it work. So right now it's just me having the conversation. So yes, in a sense, I'm asking this person if they, if they're interested in talking to this or this person. But yeah, going forward, the hope is to create a system where, people can accept or decline kind of based on if they're comfortable enough in an industry, I think would be one of the biggest things. And then beyond that, just making sure that people have the ability to review and rate people, building out that ecosystem so that we can find, hey, this person provided really helpful insight and honest feedback. And then, obviously you're going to have some people that don't provide the same quality. So
I would encourage you to think about the demographics of your people who are willing to have conversations, to do demographic profiles of them. And then for the people who are purchasing conversations, for them to create a simple offer, right? Which is they're offering the good or service to someone else, that all of your potential interviewees in a very simple fashion can either accept or decline. Because for me as a founder, I want to talk to people who accept my initial offer, who see enough value that say, yeah, at that price point, I would buy whatever you're doing. I also want to talk to people who say no, who are in my target demographic, but who say no to better understand. If I'm paying you for facilitated conversations with people, I want to know, one, that they're in my target market, that's the demographic stuff. Two, that my initial offer has landed with some of them. And I really want to understand the people who I think want to be my customers, but are saying, no, my offer is not compelling, price, service, whatever. Because then I'm going to pay for it. And I will say that, as a founder, that is something I will pay for.
that's awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But what if you learn you were wrong, Graham?
That's what I'm paying for.
No. But what if you don't know who your demographic is? In other words, what if the whole
might
idea
learn-
of discovery is you want to maybe find something out that you didn't realize, right?
Yeah, totally. So that was what I said about having respondents answer questions across tons of offers, right? Not just the ones that are demographically targeted, because you may find those things, but assuming my thesis holds, right, people in this demographic are going to want my thing at this price. I want it to be a deniable hypothesis in order to get to a conclusion.
Right. So you definitely should know who you're talking to for sure.
Yeah,
Hopefully. But I hope, Craig, that you're right, that there are lots of people that I don't know who desperately want what I have to offer.
Yeah, and to that exact point, this whole process, when it's taught within the government and other places that it's taught, customer discovery, if anybody wants to look it up, the Lean Startup by Steve Blank, it really starts with assumptions. It's like, hey, I think that this is going to work. Let me go out there and figure out if I'm right or wrong. And that can go from anywhere from, like you said, the price point. Are people willing to pay for this price? Or it can go down to a more basic level of, hey, we have this technology. Like I worked, my previous company, we did a lot of textile engineering. So we did some crazy projects for the military and NASA. And we'd try to say before we even started building the thing, what are the other applications out there? Because if NASA really loves this thing, they might buy 10 of them over the next 10 years. And if the administration changes, anything can happen. And so the government would be really encouraging of companies, and still is, to go out into the commercial market and say, okay, where else can this technology be slightly altered to fit in? So always starting with assumptions, I think is one of the core parts of this, of my idea and how I hope to help companies break down those assumptions.
Quinton, did you have anything? You unmuted, but if not.
Yeah. I was thinking about a couple of things. And it's building off of Graham's point. It's a question for you, Ross, and a suggestion all in one. But it sounds like, because I'm working through a model like you're doing, because it's about connecting people and the value is in making the connection. And one of the things that you were asking about is, that challenge with don't buy this, don't pay for this, right? And so is there a possibility that you could actually record, take a test question or a test company and gather multiple people's responses to this test business and use it as like a focus group and use it as your marketing component, so that you're showing the marketplace that you have value, there's value in using your platform. I'm kind of on Don's, because I'm kind of old school as well, but I straddle old school and leveraging technology. And in order for you to scale a business, you're going to have to leverage systems and technology. So just leveraging the potential interviewees you have and creating some video content with a focus group or with them individually to show how you can have some great answers coming through you.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I appreciate that. I think that's something that as time goes on, I mentioned at the beginning, and this is, like I said, kind of a macro part of this, but data privacy rights are changing really rapidly. All of us are going to have more protections on our data, and the companies that use us basically aren't going to be able to access that in the near future. It's already rolling back. And one of the things I've thought is, how can we help people who want to share a little bit of their information be able to monetize that sharing? And obviously companies out there, they need customer insights and they want to learn that information. And if you and I had a interview call, Quinton, and it went extremely well, I'd love to have that recorded and be able to share that with others, and then create a way for the entrepreneur and the interviewee, in this case, you and I, to both be able to potentially monetize that. So we have this recorded interview that you and I used. As you mentioned, I might use that for my own marketing in the beginning, but then as time goes on and there's this repository of information, you may be able to go there and say, hey, I have this idea. It's related to these other things. Maybe I can watch 4 or 5 videos of other people interviewing other people to gain some information or to hone my own interview skills. And I might be willing to pay a few dollars here and there for that as well. So that's just something that did pop into my head a while ago. I appreciate that feedback.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We are going to move on. So Ross will be in a breakout room after. So if you have any additional thoughts, just jump on over there and connect with him. And Ross, if you want to throw your information in the chat,
Yeah, will do.
people
Thank you,
also,
everyone. Really
also
appreciate
connect
it.
with you that way. Absolutely. All right. Well, now it is time for our Crash and Learn speaker. I want to introduce Quinton Harrell. And a little bit of background about him. He grew up in Suffolk and then also went to high school up in Maryland. So a Virginia native. He got his bachelor's in business administration from Averett University as an adult, I believe, which is cool. While he was being an entrepreneur, he was also getting his degree. He's actually been in Charlottesville for 24 years. So has a good foundation here after visiting friends and getting to the city, and then just kind of falling in love and seeing the opportunity down here, which I'll talk a little bit more about what he did when he originally came. Quinton is definitely a serial entrepreneur. He has built businesses in many different industries, from retail with his own clothing store to food truck, etc., nonprofits, construction, real estate, and technology. Some of his strengths are in strategic planning, business formation, deal analysis, connecting people and entities with diverse backgrounds. And he's honestly a huge proponent of building wealth creating opportunities for African Americans. And so you may know him in some of those circles here in Charlottesville. He was the original owner of Charlottesville Players for 14 years, which was really the go-to store for urban fashion here in Central Virginia. And that's what he did when he first came down here to Charlottesville. Also had experiences in a dry cleaning company, nonprofits, worked with Region 10 for a while, co-owner of Taste of Home Southern Cuisine. And he's now the founder of Heritage United Builders, which is a startup service creating value in the construction industry through connecting African Americans and minority subcontractors to more opportunities. And then another investment company where he's done a lot of residential and is moving into commercial real estate with that. And has also done a lot in the community, as I've already suggested. So he's on the board of New Hill Development Corp, which is a model and inspiration for the African American community. And that organization was actually a winner of the Partnership of the Year through CVIC last year, along with the Fountain Fund. So they work together in a partnership arrangement. So we recognize them there. He's also a founding member of City of Promise, a great nonprofit here in Charlottesville as well. Served on the Charlottesville Citizen Advisory Board for the Chief of Police. He's a past Boys and Girls Club volunteer, Big Brother, Big Sister mentor, worked as a group leader with CIC. So familiar with some of those organizations. And he serves as a contributing committee member for the Charlottesville Alliance for Black Male Achievement and vice president for the Black Professional Network. So much going on, all while running his own business. So businesses, plural. He is married to Yolanda, and I asked him also for a fun fact, and that is that he loves watching The Office, Curb Your Enthusiasm, and South Park. So very diverse interest there. And no, he does not sleep. Don. So when you hear it all rounded off, you're like, wow, I've done a lot. You have. And so we're really excited to have you on here, and would love to give you the floor to share about your entrepreneurial journey. And then just, I don't know if I told you this, but we're going to open up for Q&A afterwards as well. Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to spotlight you. We don't have to keep it that way.
All right. But thank you, Hope. Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here. I really, truly appreciate the invitation because I like to share. I like to share my story, share my perspective, in the hopes that I can gain perspective from others as well. As you were reading off all that stuff, I was just thinking to myself, that's ridiculous. It's ridiculous, man. And, you know, it's amazing to me that the things that you can do when you are passionate about something, though. And so, as you guys know, my name is Quinton Harrell. Here's who I am. I am the head, the founder, and the CEO of House Harrell, the chairman, and where the lovely Yolanda Harrell serves as the CEO of House Harrell. Our mission our vision is a a blessed family thriving under providence. And our mission statement is to increase our blessings so that we may be more of a blessing to others. And that's what drives all of our work that we do in this community. So there's a method to the madness. When I growing up, I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit. When I was 9, 10, 11 in Suffolk, Virginia, we used to go up to this pecan tree that was a few blocks up from our neighborhood. On Saturday mornings, we would pick pecans and fill up the old brown grocery bags full of pecans, and then walk back to our neighborhood and go and sell them door to door for $5 for the whole bag to the elders in the community. And then we would go to the candy store on our same block and spend it all on candy. And we would eat candy and then play tunk and spades and gamble candy as well. So from childhood to moving to the DC metropolitan area, where I spent all my formative years, and getting to the DC metropolitan area and hooking up with this guy. And we hatched up this plan to, we looked in the Washington Post on Sundays. We would buy the Washington Post paper and look in the classifieds. And, there were people in Northern Virginia that would be giving away pets, dogs, parakeets, lasso apsos, all kinds of stuff. And we would just look for the free items that people were giving away, hop on the subway, go out and get those items, bring them back to our neighborhood in PG County, Maryland, keep it for a week, and then we would put it back into the Washington Post and for sale, and sell those items. And so I just shared those two things with you just to show that throughout my life, the experiences that I've had, the people that I've been around, the neighborhoods that I've lived in, there's always been an entrepreneurial spirit. So I am a serial entrepreneur, and some of you may know that, that can be a gift and a curse sometimes, being a serial entrepreneur. Hope has covered many of the things that I've done here in Charlottesville. I've been here actually 25 plus years now. So that 24 years is old. One of the things that I've learned most important is the building of and establishing of and cultivating of relationships. Without good relationships, you cannot be a successful entrepreneur and a successful business person. I am a professional, the title of this segment, I'm a professional crash and learner. that is my calling card. Once I established myself in Charlottesville, I dropped out from computer engineering from studying computer engineering in Maryland before I started spending all of my time down here, to the chagrin of many of my friends and family in the DC metropolitan area, because I started setting up tables one summer during a summer break here in Charlottesville, selling t-shirts and denim shorts over on Cherry Avenue, across the street from where a little Kentucky Fried Chicken used to be over there on Cherry in the IGA parking lot. And I just fell in love with it that summer. I think it was back in like 93, 94. And I just fell in love with being in the neighborhood amongst a bunch of people and just trading goods, selling. And when I pulled out, because I found this passion, I dropped computer engineering, where I was told all the graduates, we were right up the street from NASA. The college was out in Laurel, Maryland, and NASA used our campus as their recruiting ground. So you coming out of college, you would make entry level 50, 55 grand. And this is back in the 90s. And that was good base money. And for me to drop out and to give that up to sell t-shirts and hats, a lot of people thought I had lost my mind. But it gets back to that point about the importance of having, being passionate about what you're doing. And that's what I found in selling clothes. And so I opened the Charlottesville Players about 2 years, 92, 94. Yeah, about 2 years later, I had the storefront on West Main Street, at that spot where Toby's just moved out from, in Dr. Hertz building on West Main Street, across the street from the Amtrak station. And by 2004, I opened a second location in Fashion Square Mall. And like it was written, I had about a 14, 15-year career doing that. During that time, here's where the crash and learn starts coming in. During those years, I really I started doing well. I got to a point where in these two little clothing stores in Little Charlottesville, I was doing about $500,000 a year, selling clothes. And that was pretty good for a 20-some year old. But I was still in the mindset of getting rich and hadn't learned about being wealthy yet. So with all the revenue that I was accumulating during that time, I was just buying liabilities and not concentrating on assets. I bought some assets. I bought a couple of houses during that time, but I was just going through the motion. I wasn't fully educated regarding the accumulation of assets and building wealth. I was just going through the motions. I would read a little bit here and there. So I bought my first place in 2000. I lived in that for a while, and then I bought a second place. So from 2000 to 2004, 2003, 2004, there was a lot of appreciation in real estate during that time. So I leveraged that first home that I bought, and I used it to open up the second location. But then I also purchased a rental property. That property was already rented out with someone that was on Section 8. And then I eventually bought a third place, which is the place I'm in right now. And my original place, I rented it out to one of my employees. So everything seemed safe. Everything seemed secure. I had rents that were already in place, and I would go and travel and spend money, and bought a luxury car and was party. And I was always traveled to Vegas 2 times a year because of my business, because that's where one of the major trade shows were. But jet setting, rubbing elbows with celebrities, just spending. And so the chicken came to roost by 2007, going into 2008. I don't think I need to go into depth what happened in 2007, 2008 with many of you. See, many of you got some gray hairs like me. Don, I saw Don got a little. There's another guy, he's not on the screen, have a few gray hairs. So many of us knew what happened during that time frame. And it was a very excruciating time for me economically. However, it was one of the best things that could have ever happened to me, for me to almost lose everything at that point. I shut down the store in the mall. I kept the location on West Main Street and converted that to an environmentally friendly dry cleaning service. I ended up having to take a second job during that time. We were open 16 hours a day at one point for 7 days a week. I partnered at that point. I partnered with a guy, Ty Cooper. Some of you may know him. He runs Lifeview Films now here in Charlottesville. But we partnered to run that business, and we expanded quickly. Another big lesson during that time was don't expand too quickly without having your systems in place. because you can actually grow too fast, and you can actually kill your business by expanding and growing too fast if you don't have the systems to scale up your model. So all of this, when you don't have this type of education, these type of understandings, you can really crash, and hopefully you learn doing that. What else? During that time, it it changed my outlook on how I went about business and how I went about my own personal finances. Nothing like hitting the bottom, hitting rock bottom, where you actually humble yourself and look at what you've been doing in the past and what you need to do in the future. So it was a great time in my life. It was also that turning point and that humbling educational place where, I started listening to NPR every day, and what was that show? Planet Money. I love that show, and I loved NPR. I used to listen to it every day in Eco Dry Cleaners. But it also got me to another level of volunteering in this community. I wanted to understand how economies actually work, how the business of the city works. How does things truly work? Because I never paid attention to it. And the only level of me volunteering beforehand was I would go to a school and talk to the kids, or go to the Boys and Girls Clubs and talk to the kids about money and the importance of knowing, learning words and understanding English, and this, that, and the other. But now I got to this point where I'm understanding what board service means, what really contributing to a community truly means. I decided to go back to college. I left out that I'm a two-time dropout from college as a youth. I dropped out of Capital College, the engineering college, but even before then, fresh out of high school, I dropped out of Brooklyn College in New York. So two-time college dropout. Had all this success in this retail business down here, and my mom used to ask me, like, when you going back to school? And I'm like, Mom, I was just with Jay-Z and Jay-Z and Dame Dash last week in Houston. When I have a reason to go back to school, then I'll go back. And so all those years in the 2000s, I never had a reason until 2008. And so in 2008, I decided to go back to school. And I got my degree in 2011. So I don't know how long I've been talking now. Hope, where am I on time?
Maybe another like 5 to 8 minutes.
5 to 8 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
10. Let me see. Like 10 max.
Okay. All right. So I'll go ahead and get into some of the other big lessons that I just learned from the ups and downs, the trials and tribulations in business. One of the most important things that I learned is, and I realized when I went back to school, is this concept of creating value for oneself, creating value for others. And that saying from Zig Ziglar, the more people that you can serve and help them get what they want, the easier it is for you to get what you want. So those concepts really started sticking to me more, because I came from a background of just hustling, quick flip, trying to find the angle to get in, to make it and get out, and so this concept of creating value changed my life as well. Thinking long term changed my life. It allowed me and helped me to get out of the clothing business. I created a career on being the friendly local neighborhood supplier of hip hop lifestyle, mixtapes, jeans, shirts, t-shirts, everything hip hop. I was the go-to guy for that. But what I noticed and what I recognized in the last years of the store, even though I was feeling the pain and my client base was feeling the pain of the economic downturn. I remember one day sitting in the store and I saw this young kid, teenager, and this is on a weekday. You know, the mall was quiet, and this young kid that should have been in school was coming in the store looking for something. He was what do you call it? Window shopping or looking for something that he might buy. And my thought was, what are you doing here, man? You supposed to be in school. And so it just did something to me, like where my thought process was, I have more to offer to the young Black youth in this community than this high-end, high-price, popular clothing that I'm selling. And, and that stuck with me, and it also led my trajectory and me changing what I was doing in this community. So just getting involved. I got involved with the what's the name of it? With C&E. They had this program called the Board Development Academy. That was a very good experience for me, and really cleared my mindset and gave me a better understanding of how things work. Ross, if you haven't ever heard of it or considered it or have the time for it, I would highly recommend it. I learned and understood the value of and how you can expand your network, and board membership and volunteering in this community actually connects you to people that you would never may meet any other time in your life. It connects you to people that have perspectives and have experience in life, that they have more time and they can afford to give more of their time to people. And back to that long-term component, when I was younger, I always thought about things in 1 day, 2 day increments, 1 week at the most, just quick flip hustling, so on and so forth. Over the years, I learned that, hey, I was in Charlottesville Players for 13 years at this time. And I look back on things and I said, wow, if I would have stayed in school, if I would have been in school from back then when I dropped out until now, I would have had a PhD, or at least a master's by now, but probably a PhD. Whoa, wow. And so 10 years, the amount of things that I could have accomplished in 10 years, I just look back on, not to take anything away of what I did accomplish, but I accomplished things in the riches and not in building wealth. And I had lost a lot of the things that I accumulated with riches. It just gave me this clear perspective that I need to be thinking about things and making plans with longer terms in my mindset. And so later on in the years, I came across this book by, what's his name? Hughes. Last name is Hughes. But it's called Family Wealth. And when I came across that book, this guy, he's an attorney who helps families keep wealth in their, generational wealth in their families for, they try to beat out the shirt sleeves in 3 generations, where wealth can come into a family and then be gone by the 3rd generation, because I'm not going to get into that, but go check that book out. But the thought processes of these families were planning in 100-year increments. And I'm like, whoa, 100-year increments? All right, that actually provides me with a next level of perspective to show me, like, hey, you got to be aware of where you are. You got to be aware of your situation, and you have to be humble wherever you are, because you can look down on the ground, look at an ant and see how huge you are in the world. But then you can look up into the skies and look up into the universe and realize how small you are. And so these are the ways, these are the harnesses that changed my mindset, that got me involved with all the things that I've gotten involved with. And what drives me is that mission and that vision of our family, and making sure that I do things that I am passionate about. And so that's why everything that I get involved with, anything that I get involved with, it has to do with, thanks for sharing that. Thanks for sharing the book, Hope. Anything I get involved with has to be about systems change and providing perspective to the African-American community in particular, so that we can not allow race and racism and all the things that have held us back in the past to continue to keep us on the sidelines, because there's so much value that we can create. And when more African Americans are creating wealth, then the entire society can experience even more prosperity than we have now. So I'll leave it right there. I lost the time again, but if there's anything else, you let me know, Hope, if I need to continue talking.
Yes, thank you. So I was taking the spotlight off again. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I know there's so much more. I know the entrepreneurs always have a hard time, like, how do I fit my journey in 20 minutes or whatever? So let's open it up to Q&A. Maybe that'll take you in a direction as well. Does anybody have any questions for Quinton?
I have a comment, if I could. This is why I come to these things, because you learn an awful lot. Quinton, I mean, I think the thing I just learned from you was, and I think every entrepreneur should keep in mind, is that you're curious, and that opens up everything, right? I think one of the problems with challenges, I should say, that a lot of entrepreneurs have is, we're all smart, right? We all know what we're doing, and we're smart, and got brilliant ideas, and maybe we got an MBA even or something, right? So, and you tend sometimes education and formal education before the fact. I mean, you kind of lament a little bit that you might have spent your time and you could have gotten a PhD. You actually did get a PhD, right?
Yep.
I mean, so sometimes it can narrow your thinking. Education can narrow your thinking, formal education. And so what I heard from you was this idea of being curious and always being open and humble and looking at what you don't know and learning from others. And it's carried you far. And it's really an amazing thing that happens when you do that. And that's what I take away from your story, is that you're constantly looking at what you don't know. And it's a really, I think that's the theme, and I think that's probably part of the key to your success.
Thank you, Craig. Thank you. I appreciate that. And by you sharing that, you reminded me of another thing that I found very enlightening, and it was important, and it was a hindrance in my career in pursuit of riches first and wealth now, is leadership principles, and how important honing in your leadership skills actually helps you to scale your possibilities in accumulating wealth. Leadership principles and the use of being able to utilize and organize systems, Ross, like you're talking about, and use proven financial strategies with what you do have and what you do accumulate, are the keys to wealth building and success. But leadership was one that I was like, wow, I had no idea how leadership plays a part in that trajectory.
Yeah, I mean, one of the other themes that I heard, and I'm just going to keep talking until somebody butts in, but was this idea of connection, it's almost the same thing, right? Because you're curious and because you're not looking at something like, I know this and I'm going to stick with this because this is what I think kind of thing. You're able to see the connections between your personal life and your professional life, and how people connect, how things happen, not from like kind of formalistic point of view, like I know how things work kind of thing. And so the beauty of it is actually to take a step back and know nothing and take in all this information. And I think that's the key for people who are very, very successful. One of the things I found in executives who are very, very successful most of the time is they have that humility of thought. They're always asking questions they don't know, and they want to learn. And you can see all those connections that you wouldn't ordinarily see.
Greg, I call that real talk. That's real talk right there.
Yeah, so people on Ross's platform might be able to get that.
Well, Craig, if I could butt in. I agree with you, Craig. Quinton, you've got the best PhD of anybody. You've got it of experience. Unfortunately, the sheet of paper is what always seems to have the value, but you're putting it to good use. And I was just wondering if you could talk about what I heard was, as you matured, you moved from a very, I'll call it a bit of a selfish, what's in it for me kind of guy, off in Vegas and, bumping into Jay-Z. You didn't mention Beyonce, but, and then all of a sudden now I hear a man that's really about, how do I leave a legacy in my community? How did that evolution, did that happen one night or one event, or what really caused that to occur?
A good question, Don. It was a series of events, and most of it came. I shared one, just sitting in my store one day and seeing the young kid that come through in the middle of the week, should be in school, but a majority of those stepping stone, turning point, pivoting events happen just simply through just meditating and reflecting on where I am, what I have done in the past, and what can be done in the future, but just being right there in the present. So to strip away all the philosophical of that, I'll give you another example. I remember one day just thinking about how when I was in DC and I was coming home from work. I used to work at the Ramada Inn, and I was coming through the pathway of our neighborhood, and I lived in a neighborhood that it was an open air drug market. And coming across the tracks and coming through the path that night, and I had a big 4-finger ring and a necklace on, and these 4 dudes were coming through the path, and they were stick-up kids, and they just were trying to rob somebody in that neighborhood. And so they were leaving, and they just happened to bump into me as I was coming home from work. And they surrounded me in the path, and one dude hit me in the back of the head with a gun. Bang. I fell. They tried to rob me. They tried to take my ring and take my necklace, and I wouldn't let the guy take it. This guy has a gun. So I struggled with them, stand up, and one guy shoots, pow, and shoots a shot past my head, right? And then they all run. And so, when I reflect back on it, like I could have been dead right there, right then and there. And it was, I had a couple of other times in my life over the years where I had been either robbed or attempted robbery just in my neighborhood, in my own neighborhood, or been shot at in my neighborhood. So when I look back, when I just sit back and meditate, years later, that's in the early 80s. But now I think back on it, and I'm in the 2000s. I'm like, I'm supposed to be here. The Almighty has preserved my life. I've lost almost everything, asset wise, in 2008. And I had all these experiences, like dangerous experiences in my life beforehand, and I'm still here. I'm supposed to be here, and I'm supposed to be doing something more. And so that the education that I got and that creation of value that I learned in business school, like creating value and then giving and understanding this concept of serving your fellow man, you know, and each of us having, all of us having superpowers, right? Everybody is born with some sort of superpower. And I divided in my head, you either got the super friends, you got the Hall of Justice or the Legion of Doom. And every individual makes a choice on how they use their superpowers. They use it to either serve their fellow man or they use it to conquer their fellow man. And so I choose to be in the Legion of Justice, man. You know, we all have Legion of Doom tendencies, but we have control over it. We have the choice that we make. So that's a long answer to your question, but it's been a series of situations in my life. And just it's all about meditating and reflecting on and being thankful for where you are that can actually fuel your thought process on the decisions that you make moving forward.
Wow. Great answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Don.
We can do one more question if anyone else has a question, and then we'll wrap it up. Anybody else have one?
I don't have a question.
Go-
I just have a comment that I think is really important, and then it'll be quick so somebody else can talk. I think what struck me when you were speaking was your ability and willingness to shift. So, 2007 hit, and instead of having a clothing store, you shifted to an environmentally friendly dry cleaner. And I think it's easy to get stuck and fixated in what you think you need to do and where you are, and your ability to think outside the box and move and be agile is a huge part of why you're successful. And I think that's an important factor for all of us to consider as we navigate this ecosystem. So hats off to you.
Thank you, Mary Kay.
You're welcome.
Does anyone else have anything they really want to say? Otherwise, Quinton will also be in a breakout room, so you can chat with him one-on-one as well, or small group. Thank you so much. That was amazing. Love your journey. I'd love to keep in touch. I don't know if you want to put any contact information up there, but really appreciate what you're doing in the community for sure. And so I know we'll continue to see movement from you and the legacy that's created from that. So, all right, well, let's move on to announcements. What that looks like is for you to share of any upcoming events or if your company is hiring. And I'll start with our partners. So let's start with Greg, I think I saw on here from the SBDC. If you'd like to go.
Good morning. Thanks, Hope.
Yeah.
This has been another great morning at CE2, and thank you so much to the guys for sharing. That was really cool. I'm Greg DeRazio. I'm the new assistant director at the Central Virginia SBDC, that's Small Business Development Center. That's what we do. We help build businesses at all points in the growth cycle, whether you're a solo looking to start and just trying to get the mortgage covered and hire your first employee, or whether you're aiming at equity investment, we're here for you. So what do? We roll up our sleeves and dig in with our clients, help them support the decision-making process and access to resources, including capital, which is obviously definitely a big one. We help with strategy, marketing, QuickBooks, loans, and much more. We're funded by the SBA and the localities that we serve, so that allows us to provide this service to our clients at no cost for these small businesses that we help. So what do we have going on in November? We've got a slate of new trainings that we think are going to be really pretty cool. One is on trademarks. One is on launching new products, and another one that's a tactical workshop on how to produce higher quality visuals for your social media. So some really good stuff. Of course, we still have our website Jumpstart program rolling. We're cranking out solid basic websites at no cost to small businesses. And we've got a lot of ways that we're adding value for innovators, and we're just happy to be your partners in business. So reach out if you'd like to connect and learn more. Thank you.
Awesome. I think that website development program is pretty cool. You're funded for that. And if any of you guys, Quinton or any of the rest of you guys know anyone that needs a website, they're willing to build it for free. And like you said, it's a basic website and kind of can get somebody started. So I think it's a really awesome opportunity that more people can definitely take advantage of.
Awesome. Absolutely. Thank you, Hope.
Yep. I know that Carolina is not able to join with the CIC, Community Investment Collaborative, but I have taught there some classes and been a mentor as well. I know Quinton has, and some of your businesses came out of that program. It's a really great small business incubator, if you will. And their CIC workshop application. So I think it's a 17-week course or somewhere in there to help you vet a business and kind of learn about business ownership and really figure out if it's, you know, how to get it started basically. And you can have a mentor on the back end of it, but applications open November 1st for their spring session, which runs August to June. That's a long session, August to June. That's what she said. And cicville.org is their website. I can throw it in the chat. And then Craig, would you like to share on behalf of CBIC?
Sure, I will share. Our big Golf for Tech golf tournament is coming up this coming Monday. So anybody who has an inclination to play golf, it's going to be an amazing event, great networking at Glenmore. It's a beautiful course. And it's our inaugural golf tournament. And it raises money to support CBIC programming, things like this, and other things that we do. So if you know anybody who loves golf, I'm going to put the here. I think I have it here. I'm going to put the link in here. You can go sign up. You can get a foursome together. You can play by yourself. It's going to be great prizes, great contests, food, drink. We're going to have an innovators row, which is going to be some of the startups in town are going to be on different holes talking about their products. And a lot of those are beverages. So it's going to be a fun event. So it's registration's at 10, tea time is 11. And I think it's like a best ball kind of thing, you know, so it'll go relatively quickly. So anybody's interested in golf, please go. The other thing is we're always promoting the hub CVA. I just put that in there. So if your business is not in there yet, please go up. We're still kind of in the soft launch phase and we're accumulating businesses. We built a centralized platform for Central Virginia 9 counties and Region 9 for the Go Virginia Region 9. And we're bringing some of the other counties online soon, but it's up there. It's got events, it's got jobs, it's got discussions, it's got people, it's got businesses. So if you are not there, please go there and make sure that your business is included. And that's it for now.
Thank you. I see David Tuvey here with the Batten Institute. If you'd like to share. Nice to have you back. I know we haven't had you for a couple months.
Yeah, I figured I would join to do the weather.
update.
That's the weather update, right? So it looks like it will be clear and sunny throughout Central Virginia today, with lows in the mid 40s and highs to the low to mid 70s, depending upon where you are. And in fact, this should last through to the end of the week with maybe some surprises on Friday, but we'll see how it goes. My name's David Tuvey with the Batten Institute. Sorry, we haven't been able to host you. Next time you head to grounds, because remember, we don't have a campus at UVA, we have grounds. On the Northern Territories up there, you will see a hotel and conference center emerging from the earth where the iLab previously sat. So feel free to drop by and marvel at the size of it. Although we do have new spaces within the Darden buildings. Looking forward to connecting with you all in person eventually. And yeah, sorry, my schedule was a little funky this year when everything was online. So hope everyone's hanging in there, getting out, getting some fresh air and commingling again. I went to a conference this weekend and I sat next to someone on a bus and I was like, oh my God, thank you for being the first person I've sat next to that is not a member of my family in 2 years.
Nice. Thank you, David. Any events or anything with the island?
We don't have anything upcoming that's big or public.
Programs, whatever. Okay.
The accelerator program is on pause for a moment while we're waiting for the new entity Venture Central to get set up, because we'll run the program out of that. Okay. So for me, the fall has been about teaching a class on cybersecurity and privacy. If anybody, feels insecure online, you should.
Nice. Thank you. All right, so now we'll open up the floor. If any of you guys are hiring or have any upcoming events that you want to let people know about, then you may speak up.
Hey, everybody. Graham Scharf, Director of Operations at ArcWise Wealth. On Thursday, November 4th, we're going to have a shred and lunch event at our office, 908 East Jefferson Street. Free lunch, bring your documents that you need securely shredded. We'll have a truck outside. You can just dump it in, enjoy lunch, and then go back to work. I'll put the details in the chat.
Cool, that sounds fun. What else? Anybody else? I'm
I
always
thought we
looking
would
for.
be skateboarding or going snowboarding or something with a shred and lunch. So this is much more literal.
David, please bring your skateboard.
I am always hiring, let's see, for people. I'm looking for a couple of tech companies here, a business analyst, but believe it or not, somebody that is a former teacher that wants to move into tech is somebody I would talk to. It's kind of an interesting career change, but we're open to that. And then if you know anyone who has a top secret clearance that is a developer, I would love to talk to them if they want a permanent position, not a contract role. So that's what I have locally.
Does being in the witness protection program count?
Hey, Craig. Sure. All right, I'm going to put my email address on here, by the way, or you can connect with me on LinkedIn. And I never know what's going to come across my desk. So, okay. All right. All right. If we're done there, I'll close with, okay. Whoever said that. Oh, Quinton.
Yeah. I serve as the chairman of the Minority Business Alliance of the Chamber of Commerce. And we are having our next meeting November 16th. It's from 12 to 1:30. We're still doing it online. We decided to do every other month this year because of Zoom fatigue. We serve the minority business community, but any and all are welcome to join us because we know that relationships and new connections are vital. So I'll just put in a link to the Minority Business Alliance on the chat as well.
Awesome. And that's actually where I heard you speak originally, Quinton.
Ah, okay. All right.
All right. So we do this event every third Tuesday of the month, with the exception of December. So we will be meeting in November, the third Tuesday, which I don't know what that date is off the top of my head. I feel like it's around Thanksgiving. I think it's like the 22nd or something like that. We will be virtual again, and then we will not be meeting in December, and we will reconvene in January. Stay tuned to any of the newsletters of SBDC or CIC or CBIC. I put all the websites in the chat, but to kind of know if in January it will be in person. We are leaning, as of right now, our plan is to be in person or even hybrid in January. You can also follow me on LinkedIn, and I tend to post a couple days before this event as well. And with that, we can move to the breakout rooms right on time. So Craig has established a breakout room for Quinton and for Ross. And so you can self-select into a breakout room. If you leave a breakout room, you'll come right back here in the main room unless you leave the meeting altogether. So you can jump around, you can stay in here and chat as well. But if you have more for these guys, then head on over. And then if you don't see the option on your Zoom, Craig can actually manually move you into a room. So you can stay here and then just let us know where you want to be, and we can move you. And then from there you can leave and you'll come back here. I think you have to have a relatively updated version of Zoom to do that. But I think those breakout rooms are established. I'm going to go ahead and end the recording.